The next program is the Maine Top 200, the Experimental Targeting Program, the U.S. Department of Labor. Mr. William Freeman, the Area Director, is one of the presenters, and Mr. James Goffey, the Vice President and General Manager of the S.D. Warren Somerset Mill. I assume that you will make the first presentation.
Yes, sir. Thank you for being here. OSHA's mission is to save lives, prevent injuries, and to safeguard the American worker. But we are known as an agency that regulates and enforces regulations. Big cases, big penalties, and sometimes, to our critics, nitpicking. In Maine, we took enforcement seriously, and we were good at it. We won 2 awards from the Secretary of Labor. We conducted 6 major inspections, wall to walls, levied fines in the millions of dollars against employers for willful violations. But it took 8 years to do these 6 inspections. It took 50% of my workforce. And yet, in the state of Maine, we still had the highest injury and illness rate and the highest workers' comp costs in the country. We needed to make a change. And if we were going to change, we had to change OSHA. OSHA had always measured itself and measured success by the number of inspections, by the fines, by the penalties, by the violations. We had to change. We had to recognize that citations and penalties are a means, not an end, and not the only means. That coming into compliance with OSHA's regulations was only the beginning, and that it was the responsibility of employers and employees to put safety and health in the workplace, not OSHA's. Fortunately, we had learned from employers and labor, so we decided to give them a choice, to work in partnership with us or face the traditional OSHA inspection. If they chose partnership, we asked them to do 3 things. Make a top management commitment. Get their workers involved in improving safety and health in the workplace. Second, find and fix the hazards through self-inspections. And third, develop a comprehensive safety and health program that would have a lasting effect, that would be there long after the OSHA inspector was gone. Those that chose this route, those that followed the program, would not be cited by OSHA and penalized, but we would work with them to solve their problems. All but 2 chose the partnership. One employer in particular, that after he was accepted into the program, did his own press release that he was there. The results have been incredible. Our partners, in 2 years, have identified 14 times the hazards that OSHA could have found using traditional enforcement. They have, 3 out of 5 of them, have reduced the injury and illness rate. This is the OSHA of the future. President Clinton has announced he will expand this program across the country. And as he said, as Maine goes, so goes the nation. With me today is one of our partners in this effort, Jim Goffey from S.D. Warren.
The Top 200 program started at our paper mill in January of 1994. We started with 3 objectives: to involve our union leadership and our people so we would have enduring change, to become a standard for others, and to share our learnings so we could help others. Our safety performance has improved over the last year. Our OSHA incident rate and our lost work case injury rate has declined 40%. We have identified over 17,000 hazards and have abated over 12,000. If OSHA had come in and done a wall-to-wall inspection on our facility, they would have identified a maximum of 3,000 to 4,000 hazards. They would have given us fines, and then we would have spent the next 12 to 18 months in litigation. And during that entire time, our safety would not have improved 1 iota. The effectiveness of the program is that we have our workforce involved. We are creating and ownership on the operating floor in people who are at the greatest risk of injury. And we are working in a cooperative way with OSHA, and as such, they have become a valued resource. The novelty of the program from my standpoint is that we have labor, management, and government working together. And I think that's critical if we are going to compete long-term in this emerging global society. Thank you.
Thank you. Just one quick question. How is your workforce involved? Precisely, how do you bring them into this program?
The way we did the program is we set up a joint committee of union leadership and management. And then we put together a plan and submitted it to OSHA on how we were going to proceed with the entire process. And then we went into the organization. We set up a co-leadership of a union person and a management person, and those two individuals are in the audience today and have done an outstanding job. We've got somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 60 inspectors that we identified in the workforce, mostly our craftsmen and operators, and then they became heavily involved through a training program and then going out into the workplace and doing the inspections.
First, Tom, and then Dick.
For both of you gentlemen, it is the stick of the wall-to-wall inspection that makes the carrot so tasty, is it not, Mr. Freeman?
It is a leverage program. The other option was the traditional. It offered you a choice. It's like the draft, but it's also, from OSHA's perspective, it is a waste of my resources to use that stick if it's not needed.
I'm reminded of the of the placard that says, "Today's menu. You have two choices: take it or leave it." Dick Hatcher.
This is a little bit of a follow-up on that question, but the program itself would generate more visits, or could generate more visits on the part of your inspectors. And the question that I would have is, what does that do in terms of your available personnel? And also the question of replicating the program would require additional people to work with other jurisdictions. Do you have the people to really make this program effective?
Well, you have to put it in perspective when you look at, did it take us away from doing something? 117 of these employers had seen OSHA less than twice in 23 years. So obviously now we were getting to places we had never gotten to before. Also, if you look at the top 200 employers, they employed 30% of the workforce and accounted for 45% of all the injuries. They encompass over 1,200 locations. In 8 years, OSHA had only gone to a little over 1,300 locations. So we're actually getting a much broader spectrum. There are many options. We use workers' comp to identify this select group. The other half of the program is the partnership, and that can be adapted anywhere. And you can use other means to identify, such as state statistics, BLS statistics, and so forth.
Should I
Yes.
take that as a no, or?
You easily can replicate this program.
Okay, all right, well,
David, Barbara, and Max, in that order.
we're going to do it better.
The program sounds very worthwhile, but I'd like to push a little bit more on the results in terms of the workers. The main point made in the submission by the organization was that workman's comp claims are down 35%. I gather that there was a change in workman comp laws in Maine in the early 1990s, which was also had a major impact on the number of claims being filed. They changed the way lawyers are paid. I'm curious to know, how do we separate out the impact of your program from the change in the workers' comp in terms of what the actual impact is for what's happening in the workplace?
Right. When you first launch a program, you always don't know what to measure.
Right.
And we started out with workers' comp. What we've done now is we've switched. And what we look to measure as a true indicator is restricted, lost time in both injuries and illnesses.
Right.
And this is becoming our measuring stick.
What is that measure? That's not in the submission.
It might not. That would measure the real injuries and illnesses that are occurring in the workplace. And that is the 3 out of the 5.
3 out of 5 what?
Employers have
How many
seen a
employers?
reduction.
How many employers participate in the program?
200.
And you got 3 out of 5
3 out of 5
employers.
have started to receive a reduction in injuries.
What about the other 195?
Generally, 40 to 60% of all your injuries are soft tissue. So generally, when you put in ergonomic programs, you will have a slight increase in the reportabilities of injuries and illnesses, and it takes time for this to balance out. So we would expect, in the long run, in 2 or 3 years, we will see these all start to drop out.
Thank you. We still had a couple of questions, but the time is up. We